Hi, my name's Molly. I'm an occupational therapy assistant student. Today I'm working with my patient Christy. She is a patient of mine who has a left distal radius fracture, and I will be going over a hand exercise packet for her. So we're going to start off with the hand intrinsics. We're going to start off with an exercise to stretch the fingers. So this is what we're going to start off with. We're going to form our fingers into a hook grip as shown. So we're going to form a hook just like this. We're going to place our fingers of the other hand over the fingers, and we're going to gently squeeze. So we want to hold this exercise for about 30 seconds, and I am going to do most of these exercises just 5 times, maybe not for the full 30 or however many seconds, but everything that Christy should be doing at home, like this exercise at home, she'll do it 10 times, and she'll perform this 3 to 5 times a day. So we're just going into that hook with our left hand, taking our right hand and very gently squeezing to feel that stretch, coming up and releasing. So for this stretch, the MCP joints are straight, the PIPs and the DIP joints are the ones being flexed, and those are the last 2 knuckles on your fingers. Come up, come back into that hook, squeeze, hold for 30 seconds. You can count out loud. That helps you get the full 30 seconds in. Then we'll come back into our hook for our 5th one. And then there's our hook exercise. So now we are moving on to some finger range of motion and stretches. Christy specifically needs to work on her 4th and 5th digit, which is your ring finger and your pinky finger. So for the next 2 exercises, we're going to be focusing on those specifically. So we're going to do MCP flexion, which is your main knuckle. We're going to grasp the affected finger below the main knuckle and gently bend it downward as shown. So you want to try and flex this joint and keep the other 2 joints on your finger straight. So I'm just starting with the ring finger. I'm going to do this 5 times. I'm going to hold for 5 seconds. Come all the way up. And it's also important that you do 1 finger at a time, just because we want to isolate those movements, those tendons, really work on slowly gaining that range of motion back. So just do 1 finger at a time. I'm going to do them 5 times each. Doing my pinky now, I'm holding for about 5 seconds. Trying to bend at that knuckle while keeping these 2 joints straight. My pinky wants to bend on me. Alright, so now with these 2 fingers, we're moving on to finger PIP flexion, which is this 2nd joint right here. Again, we're going to do 1 finger at a time. We're going to grasp the affected finger below the middle knuckle and gently stretch it into a more bent position. So we want to bend right here. Holding this again for about 5 seconds. I used to have RA in my fingers, which is why I have a trigger finger in my right hand. I don't have the greatest like range of motion. My pinkies are like kind of strange, so you want to try to keep that MCP straight while we're just flexing this PIP. Keeping your DIP straight too. Just kind of using your other hand to help it. Alright, so now we're going to do the hook just like we did before, just like this, except we're going to do this with each individual finger. So you want to bend the two end joints while keeping your knuckles straight. So you want to try to keep this MCP portion straight while bending the PIP and the DIP. So again, I'm doing each individual finger 5 times. I'm going to hold this for about 5 seconds. My knuckle MCP is being kept pretty straight. Okay, moving on to my middle finger. Same thing, and again, it helps if you count out loud. Make sure you're feeling a good stretch, not so much forcing anything. Keeping that portion of the finger straight, holding for 5 seconds. Flexing those last 2 joints in the fingers. Moving on to my ring finger. Again, for the last 3 exercises, you just want to make sure you're doing each finger individually. Isolate those movements. Right, I'm moving on to my pinkies, last one. Trying to keep that knuckle straight. I've got the PIP and the DIP in flexion. Alright, so now we're going to continue with some finger exercises. So for this last one, for the fingers, we're going to isolate the 4th and the 5th again. We're going to do something called composite flexion, where we're going to bend all 3 joints towards the palm. So we want to bend our MCP, our PIP, and our DIP down towards the palm. I'm going to start with my ring finger. I'm going to help my fingers kind of bend. So my MCP is bent, my PIP and my DIP is almost like kind of bent into my palm. We're going to do that 1 finger at a time, ring then pinky. We're going to hold that. I can feel that in the back of my hand. Go for 4. 5. Alright, moving on to my pinky. See all 3 joints in flexion. I'm holding for 5 seconds, doing it 5 times. Alright, so now we're going to move on to some wrist range of motion and wrist stretches. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do our wrist range of motion and stretching. So we're going to do wrist flexion, active assisted range of motion. So what we're going to do is the volar aspect of our forearm, which is also called the anterior part, should be resting flat. So in other words, we're in pronation, palm facing the floor. You're going to let that wrist hang off the edge of the table. And for this, you should be comfortable. You should be in good posture. Your elbows should probably be in about 90 degrees. And yeah, so, you know, a table not super high, not super low, any flat surface, a desk, whatever you can use. So we are going to use the other hand to bend our wrist down towards the floor until we feel a good stretch. So I'm going to do this 5 times. I'm holding for about 5 seconds. So this is wrist flexion. I'm going to come up. I'm helping my wrist go into flexion. Now, Christy, you may not have full flexion and extension, but this is why we're doing these exercises, because eventually we will build up to range of motion. It's a process. I think I gotta go about 2 more times. I feel the stretch here. Alright, so for the next one we're going to do wrist extension, and we're going to put the dorsal aspect of our forearm. So we're going to be in supination, going flat. Again, the same thing with good posture, comfortable elbow, not too high, not too low. And it's the reason that we let the hand hang off is because that also helps gravity with our range of motion, pulling our wrist into extension. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do about 5 times. I'm going to hold that stretch for about 5 seconds. This should feel like a good stretch. Alright, so now we're going to be doing something called prayer positioning, and I actually have been having a lot of pain in my right wrist. We just found out that my rheumatoid spread to my right wrist, and we're trying to get it under control. I also broke this wrist, so this is something that hurts my right wrist. Just for explanation for my classmates and Janet. But so with prayer positioning, you're gonna put your palms together like this. You're gonna slowly come down. We're gonna do that 5 times. We're gonna hold for about 5 seconds. I compensate for this wrist because this is about as far as I can get because it hurts. So I'm gonna come apart just a little bit just to stretch out my left wrist. But you should keep your palms together. Come down, come up, give it a break. Down. Now, I might not do this all 5 times because it hurts, but I'm trying to think if I had something else that I could do to try and do the same motion. I could get in a better position and maybe stretch against the wall, but hold that 5 seconds. You want to keep your palms together. You can count out loud, come back up. So now I'm going to be doing radial and ulnar deviation. So I'm going to rest my forearm on the table for support. Ulnar side, the pinky side, where your ulna is, you want to go towards your pinky side, hold, come back, hold, come back to the middle, hold, back, hold, and then we're going to go to radial deviation. So radial deviation going towards your thumb side. It's the side your radius is on. Go for holding for about 5 seconds each time. Going for 4. And I'm going for 5. Okay, so for the next one, we're going to go into pronation and supination. So for this, you want to tuck your elbow in at your side. Sit comfortably, have good posture. Your elbow should be at like 90 degrees. So supination, palm is facing up. Pronation, palm is facing down towards the floor. So you just want to do this. Supination, pronation. I'm going to do this nice and controlled with keeping my elbow tucked in at my side. I'm going to do this 5 times just to demonstrate. So, supinating 5 times, pronating 5 times. Alright, so for this next one, we're going to be doing a blocking exercise. And this is the second to last page, so we're almost done. So we're going to lay our wrists flat on the table. We're going to hold all of our fingers flat against the table except for the one. So I'm going to start with my index finger. We're going to bend and straighten the free finger as far as we can possible each repetition. So I'm going to do this 5 times. So I'm going to hold these 3 fingers. My fingers already want to come up with it. Try and keep your wrist as flat as you can. Okay, so I'm going to try to 3 fingers over here, 1 over here, so that when I do my middle finger, it still has room to bend as far as possible. Just your hands out of the way. Back a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to move. Do my ring finger, try to block the other ones. Bending as far as I can. Moving on to my pinky. Alright, so for the next one, we're going to keep our wrist flat. We're going to hold 1 finger against the table, allowing only the tip to bend. Bend the fingertips as far as possible. So I'm going to do each one 5 times. So I kind of had to hold my other 3 fingers because they kind of wanted to come up, but I'm going to put 2 fingers like this. Try and bend the tip as far as possible. I know my other fingers are going to try and come up with it. This is hard. Right, moving on to my middle finger. Okay, I'm going to my ring finger. Right, now I'm going to my pinky. My ring finger just wants to come up with it. I'm going to try and hold that down. Alright, so now we're going to do abduction and adduction. So for adduction, just trying to make sure everyone can see. So adduction, I'm spreading my fingers apart. We're coming back in, adding for adduction. Apart, coming back in, apart, coming back in, apart, coming back in, do opposition, which just means we're bringing our fingers to meet our thumb. And all my fingers want to come up. Pinky. Do 5 times each finger. Try it nice and controlled.
Alright, so now for the last page, we're moving on to our putty exercises. So we're going to do a grip exercise. We're going to have our arms supported again, the dorsal aspect, palm up in supination. Placing our putty in our hand, we're going to squeeze it firmly and slowly. And then let go, away. And you can kind of continue to reshape this in your hand as necessary. Firmly squeeze, slowly. Come out. Out. Squeezing. Coming out. Squeezing. Coming out. Okay. So for the next one, it's called a putty pinch. So we're going to roll up some putty. We're going to create a small tubular section, so kind of like a snake. We're going to pinch the putty, repeat down the section, and we're going to alternate fingers. So I'm going to do about 5 times each finger, just all the way down the putty. Just squeezing as much as I can. Third time each finger. Fourth. Let me do my last one. This is pretty hard. Alright. So now we're going to do the finger extension loop. And this is going to be our last exercise. So we're going to create a little snake again, a small tubular section of putty. We're going to form a loop around our fingers. And then we're going to extend our fingers like this, and it will pull the ring apart. So I'm going to do this 5 times, slowly extending. I am probably going to have to reshape mine every time, just because it doesn't really go back to form. 2. Just kind of fold it, put it back in a circle. 3. 4, and we're going for our last one, 5. So those are all of the exercises that I have demonstrated for Christy. So Christy, you might have a little bit of soreness after doing this, especially because on some of these papers, definitely read it thoroughly. I did it 5 times for demonstration, but like the putty, finger loop extension, you're going to do that 20 times a day, 1 time. I know some of the finger exercises a couple times a day, so you might be a little bit sore. Feel free to ice your hand, your forearm, ice some of those muscles and those tendons after, just for the soreness. Remember to take your time. You can count out loud, and that's it. That's all I have. Thank you.